This week I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into our electrical system here on the boat. So everything 12 volt, 240 volt, generating power, storing power, everything in between. I'll start off with the beating heart of the boat, which is the engine. It's mainly for propulsion, but it also does generate electricity through the alternator. So this is our BMC 1.5 litre diesel engine. That's an upgraded 70 amp alternator. I think standard these would come with about 40 or 45 amps. It's quite an old engine. I think the original design was from the 60s. This actually built in the 70s, and they don't really like putting out more than 70 amps. So that's about the maximum alternator we can put on here. On some of the newer engines, they actually have a second alternator just for the leisure batteries, which I'll get onto in a minute. This one directly charges the starter battery, just like it would on a car. That's 12 volt, whole system's 12 volt. Then from the battery, what more commonly you'd have is a split charge relay or VSR voltage sensing relay. Essentially, once this battery's charged, it would then let the other bank know, or let this relay know, and then it would go on and charge the leisure battery, just so this one doesn't go flat, so that if you were to drain your house batteries down, it wouldn't then continue and drain your starter battery down. So you'd always have the starter battery charged even if you used all of the power inside, if that makes sense. Now what we've got instead, it's a bit more of a modern version, is a DC to DC charger. So this is a Victron Orion DC to DC charger. It will take 30 amps from the alternator. Now this is important for us because we've now upgraded to lithium rather than lead acid. And basically lithium needs different settings, which you can't actually do on a VSR or a split charge relay. So you need one of these if you're going to have lithium. And yeah, that basically takes power from the alternator and puts it into our battery. This is always such an awkward space to film, but this is our 280 amp hour lithium battery, LiFePO4. We recently swapped out our dead lead acid batteries, replaced them with lithium. I've always wanted to upgrade to lithium. I was just basically waiting for the old ones to die. They did die a little bit prematurely though, because I think it initially started when we were painting the boat. I left while we were inside undercover and didn't have any solar, but still using electric, and I didn't have the display set up correctly. So I was looking at battery percentage, which said about 90, but the actual voltage of the batteries was down way below 12, which will kill them. Yeah, so really happy with this. This is equivalent to 560 amp hours total of lead acid though. Back to generating power, we have actually got a petrol generator. I was going to talk about the generator, but the sun's out, so it's only right that we talk about the solar. We've got two 340 watt solar panels. They're actually wired up in series rather than parallel. So basically what that means is we've got the positive connected to the negative, and then the positive and negative that are spare go into the solar charge controller, which I'll touch on in a minute. What a lot of people tend to do is just put the positive next to a positive and negative to a negative, almost if you're jump starting a car. That keeps the voltage the same, like 12 volt on a car, but the amps increase. Now what we've done is increase the voltage. I watched the video and read the website quite a while ago now actually. Explorist Life, they talk in depth about the benefits of wiring in series. Essentially, on a standard panel, most of them are around 20 volts, and a 12 volt battery won't charge really until it gets 14 volts. That only leaves 6 volts of range. I'm sorry, you're probably all falling asleep. Only gives you 6 volts of range that they'll actually charge the batteries. It means that the solar panel's got to be at roughly 75% capacity before it'll actually touch the battery. Now by wiring them like this, I've increased the voltage to around 68 volts, which obviously the difference between that and 14 volts is crazy. So these will only have to run at about 20% capacity before they'll start initiating the charge cycle with the batteries. On cloudy days in England, it's very hard to think of that whilst I'm staring into the sun, but generally speaking, on cloudy days you will see an improvement on how much your batteries will actually charge. For anyone interested in reading a bit more, I'll leave a link to their page and the video that I watched in the description. So from our solar panels we come into our solar charge controller. This is a Victron MPPT. I'd only recommend getting an MPPT. I think it maximum power point tracker. I think the alternative is PWM or PRM. It's like an older type. This converts the 68 volts that our solar panels can produce change them into 12 volts that the batteries like, and that's what gives us our 28 amps coming in at the minute. Don't know if you can read numbers from there, but it's a MPPT 100/50, so that's 100 volts and 50 amps max. We're just coming into that time of year now where we can almost live completely off of solar. I think by April we will. And that probably lasts right the way through until September, October, so almost 6-7 months completely on solar, without having to rely on any sort of outside sources like the engine running or our petrol generator, which I'll talk about in a minute. For now though, thank you to EcoFlow for sponsoring this video. Over this winter especially, we've been completely reliant on using the EcoFlow as a backup. When our batteries died back in, I can't remember what month it was now, even our LED lights were completely dead. Nice way to start the day with some completely dead batteries. Oh no. Our batteries actually dropped down to 8 volts or something, so well and truly dead. We were charging our phones off of the EcoFlow. Now thankfully we could take the EcoFlow to a friend's house, charge that up, and then bring it back and charge things like our head torches and yeah, phones and laptops and stuff, just enough to keep us connected to the outside world. EcoFlow primarily make power banks just like this Delta 2 Max. It's essentially a power bank with everything combined. So you've got a lithium battery, LiFePO4, you've got a inverter, and then all of your sort of USBs and USB-C outputs. Fully self-contained, and we've been using one for, I want to say, a couple of years now. Throughout the boat build, I've even tested it, and you can power a welder from the bloody thing. I don't know if there's much that it won't power on this boat, to be honest. It even powered the washing machine. And last week I was sort of, I don't know, ran away with my ideas, let the intrusive thoughts win, and I thought, I wonder if it will actually charge our boat's batteries through our inverter charger, and it bloody did. This would actually put out 2400 watts continuous, and through something called X Boost, which basically increases the power output. I think it peaks at 3100 watts, so virtually anything in your house it would power. So it's just like a generator, goes into our input. That's on. A bit glary. Bit glary. Only got 22%. So where I can imagine that being handy is along the canals. We're not actually supposed to run the generators before 8 or after 8. So if you imagine gets to about 9 o'clock at night, your batteries die, you're not supposed to run the generator, I could plug that in with the EcoFlow inside, completely silent, and actually top our house batteries up. So I thought it'd be quite a good idea. Also the fact you could just take that away in a car camping with you and charge all of our electrics. That will charge off of mains, so if you want to plug it in at a campsite or plug it in at home before you take away, they're actually some of the fastest charging power banks on the market still, and they'll charge from 0 to, I think that one, 0 to 80% for the Delta Max in an hour. I'll put some figures on here because they're all over the place, but most of them charge in under an hour completely, which is crazy. If you're interested in checking it out, I'll leave a link in the description for you to have a look at EcoFlow's site and any discounts I can rustle up as well. Next up, onto our generator. So this is quite a new addition for us. When the batteries died, the engine also died. We had quite a bad coolant leak coming from one of the core plugs, so we couldn't even run the engine until I could get hold of those to charge the batteries that way, and obviously there was no solar because it's winter. So bit the bullet, bought a generator. Most people tend to use these throughout the winter anyway. Yeah, 1700 watts impact, or was it 1900 watts? It says 1900, but I'm pretty sure it's 1700 watt max. And then fire this up. Not pointing your exhaust into your house. Normally have it off the boat. And then, like the EcoFlow earlier, that's now plugged into our inverter charger. This is a Victron MultiPlus 12 3120, so 12 volt, 3000 watt max output, and 120 amp that it will use as the charger. A lot of people just have a separate inverter and charger. This is just one unit all built in, and then if we ever plug into mains like in a marine or something, it does exactly the same as if using the generator. So again, 1600 watts just over from the generator. That's a shore power. This, by the way, is a Serbo or GX Touch. Basically we've got a control panel that you can put loads of sensors and stuff in. This is just a display screen that we've got. So we've got 1700 watts coming in, 80 watts going out as AC loads. So that's anything like these lights are coming off of the mains, 240 plug sockets. That's the battery status. We've got 108 amps gunning, 275 watts of solar. Then anything DC is basically the fridge and stuff going on. So that's all of the power inputs I can think of. Just to recap, we've got the engine runs, which powers the alternator, which comes into DC to DC charger. Then you've got 6 or 7 months of the year access to the solar panels, which come into the solar charge controller. Then you've also got the generator we can use, which comes into the inverter charger. Now, whilst we're on the topic of inverter charger, the inverter is what gives us our 240 volt power. So any outputs with a plug like that, that's 240 volt. So whilst the generator's on, I'm going to charge the EcoFlow up so that it's ready for a rainy day. It's on 20%, got about 55 minutes left, it's taking about 2000 watts out. 1700 watts coming in, 2200 watts coming out. You can see we're at a deficit of 30 amps at the minute. The main other thing that we use 240 volt for is the washing machine. That's quite a hefty power user, don't know how you word it. That takes around 2000 watts I think, so similar to this. The inverter is good for 3000 anyway, and then our oven is designed for a house, so it's got 240 volt electric ignition, which we sometimes just flick the inverter on to turn the oven on rather than reaching in with a lighter or a match. Everything else is pretty much 12 volt then, so we've got the main lights, our fridge, water pump, a couple other things in this cupboard I'll just mention. Because we're on a boat, we've got something called a galvanic isolator. Turn off. Galvanic isolator, basically this takes any, well, most of the chance, if you hook up to electric, it's still witchcraft to me on how this works, but basically if you plug into electric 240 volt 16 amp hookup in a marina, your boat earths through the water. Now if you've got a galvanic isolator, that minimises any chance of corrosion happening to the hull. I don't know how it works, I'll put a little picture up, someone will have explained it. Magic, but you really do need one of those if you've got an inverter or charger, inverter charger. This is the Serbo. This is like, takes all of the different components here and puts them into a readable format for the display. This is one of the, I can never remember the name, like a breaker, circuit breaker? Yeah, circuit breaker for 240 volt electric, like you'd have in a house. That's like a little fuse board for all the 12 volt bits for fuses, and that's just a distribution bit for the bigger power cables. Hopefully that's been of use to at least someone. Hopefully it wasn't just me rambling on for 20 minutes, half an hour, however long this video might be. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to our patrons. Yeah, join me next week for some more cruising videos. Yeah, let me know if you found that helpful though, or if there's any unanswered questions. I'm sure there are.